All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this pair topic seminar. My name is Qing Chen, the director of the Hollywood Academy for Interdisciplinary Research, or PAIR, here at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. You probably don't know that the PAIR was established in 2021 to address the major societal issues. And it includes like 17 sustainable development goals that are provided in United Nations in 2015. For example, like poverty, food, environment, sustainable cities, etc. So PAIR was established to conduct research by working together with the people from different disciplines and to develop the solutions for those type of problems. So we try to work with the business, government, and industry to develop the solutions, and then we're also working with the public institutions involved, try to transfer the knowledge to the industry and business. Now, currently PAIR has 16 units, which included 11 research institutes and 5 research centers. So we mainly working on 3 areas, like smart cities, advanced technologies, and good health and well-being. So we try to work with people with a different type of background. Typically, we have an RI involved at least 15 senior researchers, and then a research institute or RI involve 30 researchers, and RC research centers involve at least 15. So in the past year, we have at least gathered more than 400 senior researchers here at the Poly, and we try to also work with the leading expert internationally. And today, we are very lucky to have Professor Chen Qiuhua from the Nanyang Technological University give us a seminar. So this is a very typical activities being held there. So first, I would like to invite Professor Liu to give an introduction of the speaker.
Thank you, Professor Chen. Chen Liu is here. I would like to introduce Professor Chen Qiuhua. He's a chair professor from the Nanyang Technology University. He also is a fellow Singapore Academy of Engineering. He also is a fellow of ASEAN Academy of Engineering. Professor Chen is a world leader professor. He is one important leader in the Singapore for the energy. He also serves 3 different area research institute. So he have the very long and CV and properly and we invite Professor Chen to give the speech. Professor Chen, please.
First of all, thank you, the host, Professor Chen, for inviting me to give a talk. Next, thanks to Professor Liu for his kind introduction. The topic of my presentation is Turquoise Hydrogen, a possible solution for renewable energy scarce country in energy transition period. Just well, we know that Singapore and Hong Kong, we are very lacking of in my old colleagues that, it's very lacking of renewable energy, right? Okay, you can see that a few logo there. That is the research carrying out at the Energy Research Institute of NTU. Myself is the founder as well as the co-directors of the institute. So today's presentation covers three parts. The first part is Singapore's energy story, which lead to the national hydrogen strategy. I'm not sure whether Hong Kong has any kind of a long-term energy plan, but Singapore being a very small country, we are vulnerable to many issues, and energy is something that very important to us, just like the water resources. The second part is Turquoise Hydrogen, a possible solution for energy transition period. And the last but not least is the hydrogen and fuel cell research activities at NTU. So the brackets, means that the number of slides that I will cover. First of all, I'd like to share with you the emission profile of Singapore. You can see that from the pie chart, you can see that industry, power sectors, as well as transport contribute the main CO2 kind of emission. If you look at the power and the industrial alone, power plus the industrial, that is the main bar, right? It's 44%, right? And from the power, if you zoom in to look at the power, right? Really able to show you. That's how you work, but it doesn't work the pointer. Doesn't matter. I think that let me use the mouse. Mouse also didn't work. Okay, mouse is working now. If you look at the power, in which 16.2% is actually went to the industry. So in total, more than 60% of the CO2 actually are related to the industry, right? So from here you can see that the major issue is still the industry. Transport emission will transition because by 2040 we will be phasing out the petrol vehicle. So in future there will be electric vehicles, and then it will pose more stress to the power sector. The last bullet point, you can see that the power sector transition since 2000 from oil to 95% of natural gas. So all the while we are using natural gas strongly. I know that Hong Kong we are using still very much rely on oil as well as the coal. This slide share with you the Singapore climate change commitment. The first one is a Copenhagen pledge. Is to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 16% below the business as usual level in 2020. We have achieved the goal, right? So this 16% is actually equal to the emission intensity, right? Meaning that the total amount of the CO2 divided by the dollars. Right? The second one is a nationally determined contribution. We know that our CO2 will peak before the 2030, right? You will expect that 66 million tons of CO2 before the 2030, but we would like to limit it to no more than 60 million tons of CO2 equivalent in 2030. The long-term goal is to achieve the next zero emission by 2050. In China, it is 2060. I don't know in Hong Kong what is the so-called timeline to achieve the next zero. So this shows something very interesting. You can see the left top corners, there's some signing. I represent NTU signing the MOU with China, Japan, and Korea Hydrogen Association to promote the hydrogen economy. And this slide shows the data from pulled out from World Energy Council, and it's on the Energy Trilemma Index. You can see that those are great. In the bracket, it was the data in 2021. So overall, if you look at the Energy Trilemma Index, the best one is Japan 19, actually they perform better in 2021 from 16 and then become 19. And the second best one is the Korea. There's a quantum leap in terms of improvement from 32 to become 22. The third one will be Singapore, from 34 to become 30. China is 51 to become 40. So let's look at the zoom in to look at the energy security, energy equities, and environmental sustainability. Singapore scored D in terms of energy security, which is very bad, right? And we are doing relatively well in terms of equity, no problem, because we can afford to buy the electricity, the energy. Environmental sustainability, we are not too bad, we score B, but energy security is very important. So if you still can recall the last slide, we are talking about our commitment in CO2 reductions, from since Copenhagen's pledge, and then after that our NDC and our long-term goal. So here show you that we have two problems. One is on our commitment in terms of environmental sustainability. The other one is energy security. So here, let's compare Singapore and Hong Kong. We are like brothers, we have the same problem, right? We rank better than Hong Kong in terms of energy trilemma index. In terms of energy security, we are equally bad, right? I'm not sure any one of you pay attention to this, but this is the problem, right? Compare the population, Hong Kong has more population, maybe 1.5 million more than Singapore. Land size, they are larger than us, right? Total energy, in terms of exajoule, we use far more energy than you, partly because we have oil refinings, we have petrochemicals, we have aerospace industry, making aero engine, we contribute to about 11% of the semiconductor in the world. So that's why this is reflected in some of the energy. What is exajoule? Exajoule is equivalent to about 24 million tons of oil equivalent. And you can multiply the factors and calculate how much CO2. Take us, for example, 3.1, right? 1 kilogram of oil is equivalent, will generate 3.1 kilogram of CO2. You can work out how much CO2 that you produce. So Hong Kong used a lot of oil. Your major energy came from oil, and then natural gas and the coal. Electricity will be the secondary kind of energy, arising from using the fossil fuel. So in terms of electricity, in terms of total energy, is that Singapore actually uses far more than that. So per capita, we respect that the CO2 is high per capita, due to the small number of population and a lot of energy being consumed. So Singapore energy strategy, we call it the 4 switches. The first one is called natural gas. Natural gas, if you look at the bottoms, what we can do is on the energy efficiency. Nothing much we can do with the fossil fuel, right? So 95% of Singapore electricity is generated using the natural gas, which is already the cleanest fossil fuel today. And natural gas will contribute to the dominant fuel for Singapore in the near future, while we are scaling up the other switches like solar, and power grid connection to our neighbor, and the last one, the emerging low carbon technology. Right, the government will help the GenCo to improve the efficiency. Nothing much we can do, right? So accept this energy efficiency. This link to my today's topic, Turquoise Hydrogen, meaning that we take the hydrogen out from the natural gas without generating the CO2, right? Instead, it is solid carbon. The second one is solar PV, which is the only renewable energy we can rely on, right? And our ultimate goal is to achieve a 2 gigawatt by 2030. So you can see that all the reservoir, we have more than 10 reservoirs, all covered with, ultimately will cover with the floating solar PV, right? Unfortunately, our sea, we cannot make use of the sea to cover the floating solar PV, partly because of the maritime hub. The ship have to access to Singapore, you cannot put the solar PV around Singapore.
right? The third one is the regional power grid, which relate to the energy web, right? Like World Wide Web, but energy web connect to the ASEAN country. Singapore will also explore ways to tap on the regional power grid to access energy that is cost competitive. We are going to buy 4 gigawatts of the power from Malaysia, Indonesia, and Laos, right? From Laos, maybe will be the hydropower. The second one, solar power, despite 2 gigawatt peaks of the installation, because of the sun peak hours, that it can only contribute about 5% of the electricity of Singapore need, right? So not much we can do. So we rely on power grid connection. The last one will be emerging low carbon alternative. Government is looking into the emerging low carbon solution that have the potential to help reduce Singapore carbon footprint, which include the CCUS as well as the hydrogen. Then we have an oil refinery. We are one of the third oil refinery centers, and all the oil companies are actually looking at capture the CO2 and convert the CO2 into chemical fuel like SAP, sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. So we have 3 possible implementations scenario. The first one is for clean energy renaissance. The second one is a climate change action block. The third one is emerging technology trailblazer. So if you look at the green color one, is the main part will be contributed by the hydrogen and electricity import. Of course, hydrogen is also import, right? And then balance with geothermal locally and the solar, and a little bit others from the waste turn to the energy. For the middle one, the orange one, the electricity import will take up more than 50% and balance with the hydrogen. But here you can see that we still keep the natural gas, right? But we will apply the carbon credits to offset the emission from natural gas. The third one will be the low carbon hydrogen will take up more than 50%. It's the main fuel to power Singapore, while electricity import and other low carbon alternatives such as nuclear will diversify the energy supply, right? So these are the 3 scenarios. After these 3 scenarios, you have to choose one, which is neither any one of here, but it's a mixture of others. So this came out with a Singapore National Hydrogen Strategy, which about 50% of the hydrogen will be used to generate the power, right? So if you look at the left-hand side, is the study of hydrogen import and downstream application for Singapore. Government has actually engaged KBR and Argos to do a power study, just like Australia engaged KPMG to do the study, right? So this will look into the possible import of the hydrogen and possible application of the hydrogen. So hydrogen can supply up to 50% of the electricity. The key factors that sector that affected are the power, maritime, aviation, and the industry, right? And the 5 key thrusts are experiment with hydrogen technology close to the commercial readiness, through Pathfinder project. So we started already. We have a government call for EOI, expression of interest by the company to participate. Invest in the R&D to unlock the key bottleneck. Government is very generous to pour in money to unlock the bottlenecks of the technology. The third one is very important to pursue international collaboration to enable hydrogen supply change, right? So this is very important that we need to become a hub so that we can access to the hydrogen. The long-term land and infrastructure planning, this is very expensive, right? You have to look at the planning, the boundary, the distribution, etc. The 5th one will be the manpower, workforce trainings for the coming hydrogen economy. So everything is in place. The policies came out, the plans is in place. So this is something very important. I don't know personally that whether this is the right thing to do. We impose the carbon tax, but our neighbor not, right? So we kill our own industry, right? So you can see that as of now, our carbon tax is only 5 Singapore dollar, not even US dollar per ton. But 2024, next year, it will increase to 25, 5 times. Right? You look at the power plant, how much, and just now I show you how much energy we use to work out the CO2, that is tremendously high. Right? By 2026 and 2027, it gone up to 45, from $5 to 45. By 2030, 1 ton become 50. From 5 to 50, 10 times. Imagine that just in few years' time, the carbon tax increased 10 times. This forced the industry to go green. That is the only way that we mobilize the industry to go green. I don't know why is this not working. No point. Well, yeah, this slide taken from a National Research Foundation, right? You can see the brown color arrow as well as the green color arrow. Right? If you look at our brown color arrows on the left-hand side, we have petroleum products import and the crude oil. We make it into a fine chemical, we refine our oil, and the natural gas used in the power plants generate the electricity or energy, generating the CO2 again. And then we also reform the natural gas and then mix with the natural gas again and to become the so-called the city gas for home cooking. Right? So these all generate the CO2. And then now let's look at the green color part. The left bottoms, you can see that we will import the renewable hydrogen generated from the renewable energy source. In terms of liquid hydrogen, organics, hydride actually is a methylcyclohexane, and the third one is in terms of ammonia. These are the so-called hydrogen pad. Of course, this will generate the hydrogen either the gas regasifications or dehydrogenation, right? The hydrogen. And then together with the CO2 captures, we go for the make the chemical synthesis, the fuel, and then after that, we return the fuel will return back to the fuel source. So this is how we work. And the hydrogen can directly burn in the power plant as well as the fuel cell. This is something that very interesting. I'm not sure whether you noticed this from the internet. Australia proposed 10 gigawatt of solar farm with energy storage battery 30 gigawatt hours, right? And then most of the energy will be transported to Singapore in terms of electricity through a cable, subsea through the underwater, 4,500 from Australia to Singapore, right? And if successful, this will contribute 20% of Singapore energy need by 2027. But early this year, this initiative is being killed, partly because of the too complicated. The cable will go through Indonesia, where they wanted to charge a premium. It's a very complex kind of story, but recently I was told that they revised the discussion, they restart the discussion. And this is something very important that you can see one of the world's largest solar farm and energy storage and cables underwater kind of high voltage kind of direct currents through the ocean. So this is a very interesting. And here also show you that something that is real that we really implemented is on the left hand side. Keppel, which is our LLC, locals, large company, work EPC, engineering, procurements, and construction to Mitsubishi and Jurong Engineering for Singapore first hydrogen-ready power plant. Meaning that I can fire the gas from a 20% of hydrogen to 100% of hydrogen. And how big is this? 600 megawatt. I'm not sure if you look at many countries around, including China, when talk about hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, look at the transportation sector. How much CO2 contributed from the so-called road transport actually is very small compared to the industry, compared to the power. Right? Everybody is talking about hydrogen fuel cell. If there is a one hydrogen fuel cell 1 megawatt, People already say, wow, 1 megawatt, very big. But how about power generation? We are talking about 600 megawatt or even 1 gigawatt. You have to burn the hydrogen directly in the gas turbine. On the other hand, we have a Singapore port, which is a Jurong port. We plan to have a combined cycle power plant burn with 100% ammonia. This is actually not small, 60 megawatt of combined power cycle power plant. Right, so these are under the planning. Now we'll come to today's topic. Just like I give you the backdrop of why, what is a Singapore commitment, our energy security issue, and then next we look into what is the turquoise hydrogen, especially catalytic decomposition of methane. Since this is a public talk, I won't go into a very detailed technical part, and also partly because of this project is funded by US oil major, and we have already signed the export control agreement with them. I cannot disclose a lot of the details. So you know that there are different types of hydrogen. You know what is called green hydrogen. You know what is called gray hydrogen, right? By steam methane reforming, you generate a hydrogen. If you don't capture the CO2, you release to the atmosphere. This is called gray hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is that you capture the CO2, you bury it so that you won't go to the atmosphere, and typically you're only able to capture 90%. That's called blue hydrogen. Brown hydrogen, you're using the coal, all right, to get the hydrogen out. Pink is by using the nuclear energy to produce the hydrogen. Yellow is a mixture of fossil fuel and renewable energy. The hydrogen that we produce through electrolysis is called the yellow hydrogen. Then what is called turquoise hydrogen? Turquoise hydrogen is between the blue and the green, right? So actually we are still using the fossil fuel, natural gas or methane gas, but we take the hydrogen out without generating the CO2. It's actually a solid carbon instead. This is very important step to show you this is data for Singapore, right? On the left-hand side is liquefied hydrogen supply chain cost from 2020 to 2050. On the right-hand side is ammonia supply chain cost 2020 to 2050. Of course, this ammonia supply assumes that hydrogen is extracted from the ammonia, right? So we are comparing hydrogen to hydrogen, but one is directly is hydrogen, the other one is using ammonia as hydrogen category. From here, you can see that it is not like you Google DOE tell you that 111 campaign, $1 per kilogram in 1 decade time, meaning that 2030, $1. So cheap. But if you look at this, the data here, there is, if you look at vertically up from the center is 2020, 2030, 2040, and 2050. The last one is the cost, percentage of our cost reduction, right? So first of all, when you produce the hydrogen, right, using the PEM electrolyzer, assuming certain efficiency, 2020 cost is $4.29 US. When moved to the 2050, it dropped to 187 cents US cent, $1.87 US dollar. Then after the production, you have a transformation. Transformation means that you have to liquefy it to become a liquid so that it's ready for transport. After the transformation, you have a storage for export purpose. Then you have a transportation cost. Then you have another storage for import purpose. And then liberalization, meaning that regasification of the hydrogen. And finally, you have a levelized cost of a hydrogen. How much per kilogram? Here you show me that started from 2020 is at $8.91 US dollar, and then it dropped to $4 by 2050. It's not like what you think that $1 in 1 decade time when reach the home because EAP deliver at places, right? It becomes $4, and the reduction since 2020 will be 54% overall. Certain things can drop a lot. We can see that production can drop 56%, but no other can drop much. Overall, the reduction is On the right hand side, the same thing that we are production using the PEM electrolyzer. Secondly, the transformation, because hydrogen together with nitrogen through the Haber-Bosch process, you synthesize the ammonia. Then after that, you store it for export, transportation, storage again for import, liberalization, meaning that you have to do the ammonia cracking, take the ammonia out, purification as well, and the cost still cheaper than a liquid hydrogen. That is $3.80 by 2050, right? This is what we have done. This is very important when we compare the technology. Excessive is a CO2, meaning that when you produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, how much in terms of a mass of the associated CO2 liberated. The y-axis is the cost, right? A kilogram of hydrogen, how much, right? So we can see the green color one is by electrolysis using the renewable energy. That's why it's green, right? And we have a two timeline. One is as of now, the other one is 2050. You can see that the cost of those the CO2 is zero, right? By using the renewable, really the renewable, right? And then the cost is reductions, significantly come to the 2050. You can see the gray color one, including the CG, this coal gasification, right? And assuming the coal is 1 gigajoules or about $3 US. And then for the steam methane reforming, the circle, you can see that the brown color one, assuming that the natural gas is $5 US per gigajoules or about 1 MMBTU, right? You can see that SMR is very low, close to 150 now, the price now, but it associated with 9 kilograms of CO2. When you produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, it generated 9 kilograms of CO2. You can't do this business, huh? This is sinful. But if you capture it, right, you can see that SMR, if you capture it 90%, the blue color one, SMR with 90% CCS, the cost increased to not more than 250, but the CO2 dropped to about 1 kilogram or so, right? Kilograms of hydrogen produced. Look at the methane cracking. MC is a methane cracking. Again, we assume that the natural gas is same as the SMR. It is per MMBTU, $5 US. You can see the cost by methane cracking without the CO2 is about $3. But you look at the bottoms one, MC, right, with a carbon price of $0.5 US per kilogram. If we price the carbon only at 1 ton $500, it can bring the cost down to 150, right? Close same as the SMR price now. So this is the reason why that we wanted to go this route in the energy transition time, in the energy transition period, because we will continue to import the hydrogen. We have a two pipeline, one from Malaysia, one from Indonesia, supply the natural gas, and we also import the LNG. We have the infrastructure to store the LNG. We will continue to use it before we totally phase out the fossil fuel, the use of fossil fuel. The transition period is this. Many countries talk about energy transition. They just assume that now they're using fossil fuel, by 2050, switch on the green button. How about the period? How do you transit it? That is the most difficult part, right? So this is what one of the solutions that we propose. Here you can see that tree technology, SMR is very mature since 1930. The bottom one is a methane pyrolysis or methane cracking since 1980. The middle one is electrolysis, has longer history since 1800, right? So you can see that on the right hand side are some of the technology, how SMR work. You go through the steam methane reforming, water gas shift, purification, and ultimately you will get your hydrogen, right? The middle part, I think from high school you learned it, electrolysis, very simple. The third one is the methane cracking, meaning that you apply the heat, whether with or without the so-called the catalyst, And under high temperature, you split the methane into the carbon as well as the hydrogen. If you look at the boxes on the left-hand side, you can see the energy input and the resource input. SMR is a 5.7 kilowatt hours, right? This is quite reliable because it's a mature technology, right? 2 kilograms of methane will generate 1 kilogram of gray hydrogen associated with 5.5 kilogram of CO2. This is theoretical CO2, but the actual is a 9 to 10 kilogram, right? The second one is the electrolysis, 38.9 kilowatt hour. I am sure that some of you working on the electrolysis, you will say that this is too good to believe. But of course, we are talking about 2050 to achieve 38.9. 38.9 kilowatt hour meaning that the entire energy efficiency is 86%. As of now, using the PEM average is for 67, meaning that 49 kilowatt hour of electricity go to the electrolyzer to generate 1 kilogram of green hydrogen, right? So this associated with 8 kilogram of oxygen liberated. Most of the time that you just throw away the oxygen. Methane pyrolysis, 5.2 kilowatt hour compared to steam methane reforming is actually less, right? But you need 4 kilograms of methane in order to generate 1 kilogram of turquoise hydrogen and associated with 3 kilogram of carbon. So from here, the problem is that a lot of carbon here, how do you absorb the carbon? So we have to think about the way that how to, while we are producing the energy, the carbon, if you don't make use of carbon, it becomes a waste, it becomes a problem, right? So the best one we propose to oil major is that to use it in the building, concrete. If you use it in the concrete, not only it can strengthen the concrete, and it can absorb, dampen all the, remove all the carbon that we produce during the energy transition. I'm not talking about longer, I'm talking about the transition period. So here you can see that energy analysis, if you buy SMR, right, you need to heat up the waters to the temperature, say, at a certain from 298 to 1000 Kelvin, right? So SMR, you need 45.8 megajoules, methane pyrolysis 32.6 less. But the input, right? SMR, you only need 2 kilograms of methane. 2 kilograms of methane equivalents to 100 megajoules. Whereas for methane pyrolysis, you use 4 kilograms of methane. This equivalent to 200 megajoules on the top table. The total energy for SMR is 145.8, right? The total energy for the methane pyrolysis is 232.6. But we both only produce 1 kilograms of hydrogen, which is 120 megajoules. So the second table shows you the theoretical efficiency. SMR will be at 82.3. Methane pyrolysis will be 51.6. No good, am I? Partly because of carbon is not being oxidized. If carbon is being oxidized, it generates the heat, right? So that is, if you don't convert the carbon into values, it makes no sense. So that's why you think about, from economics point of view, you have to turn it into something that, useful. But the advantage is that SMR will produce 5.5 kilograms of CO2. This is theoretical. In reality, as I mentioned, that it's a 9 to 10 kilograms. Do you know that how much energy we need to capture the CO2 from the atmosphere? The minimum is 2,000 kilowatt hours in order to remove 1 ton of CO2 from the atmosphere. There's a lot of debate in US whether you should, extract the CO2 from the power plant or from the atmosphere. If you extract it from the so-called the power plant, you will continue to use the fossil fuel. That is something that's not doable. People are looking at capture the CO2. Minimum is 2,000 kilowatt hour per ton. So these are the reality. You look at from the number perspective, you know that what can be done and what cannot be done. So I want to skip this. It's actually some comparison, especially the reaction temperature. Methane pyrolysis is actually lower temperature than the SMR, right? And then in terms of pressure required, SMR is between 3 to 25 bar. The rest, methane pyrolysis is atmospheric pressure. So I also have done this. Who are the players? Most of the time we are doing research, we do not know who are our competitors, right? On the left-hand side, you can see I classify into corporate, small and medium enterprise, and research institute. On the top, we have 3 major technologies using the plasma, using the thermal, using the catalytic method. Aker Solution and Gazprom. Aker from Norway. Gazprom, they started this long time ago. They are the pioneer using the plasma. BASF, they do it recently, right? SME, you can see Monolith from US, Hyrox from UK, Econa from Canada, standing wave, even using the wave to break the methanes, is also a way to achieve extracting the hydrogen from methane. Also a Canadian company. Hazel Group is an Australian company. C0 is a US company. I just met up with them, Santa Barbara. And then Research Institute, plasma, I think Xi'an University is continuing doing this. Thermal will be a KIT, TNO, UC Berkeley, and catalytics, you can see many universities. This is not the exhaustive kind of a list. Many universities actually jump into this area. You can see that very crowded. So different reactors, you have free-die beds, you have rotary kiln reactors, you have the molten metal, molten salt reactors, and the last one is the plasma. So I don't want to go through the details, but free-die bed is the most common one, right? Commonly used in as a reactors. And we apply the second one, rotary reactors. You can see that the problems with free-die beds is that because carbon is formed together with the catalyst, the carbon will wrap the catalyst so as to deactivate the gas from accessing the catalyst for reaction. So we have this problem, right? So then the solid-solid separation, meaning that the carbon they have to remove from the catalyst is a major problem. In the rotary reactors, later you can see that we solve this problem. So I give a summary of a plasma, most mature technology using plasma torch, where methane is pyrolyzed between 1000 and 2000. We have a whole plasma and a hot plasma. Aker Solution, Monolix, Gazproms, they are in this technology. Thermal is a pyrolyzed between 1000 and 1500, all very high temperature, right? BASF is at 1400, KIT 1200, TNO more than 1000. The catalytic one required lower temperature, typically less than 1000. Hazel Group, C0, and Nanotechnology University. And in order to reduce the cost, we use the iron group, nothing more than nickel, cobalt, and iron on LSCM, which is typically, the material for solar oxide fusion. So I also list down the technical challenges: high process temperature to achieve a high conversion, right? Hydrogen purity, gas-solid separation to avoid the activation of catalysts, and the last one will be reactors blockage. There are two. This is a more fundamental: the growth of the carbon filaments on the catalyst, right? You have a two scenario. The left-hand side is the weak phase interaction between the catalyst support as well as the nanoparticles, metals, which is a active catalyst. The second one on the right-hand side is a strong phase interaction, right? For the weak phase interaction, first the methane gas will diffuse and absorb onto the surface, the metal, the red colored dot, and then carbon will diffuse down and deposit at the interface, right? That after that, the carbon nanotube grow longer, and the metal is being pushed up, right, until certain time that it stops. In the rotary reactors, because it's rotating, and ultimately the filaments will detach from the so-called catalyst support. But unfortunately, the metal is lost. The metal together with the carbon. Then you have a problem. If you produce a carbon nanotube with metal, unless you are okay with this application, otherwise you have to do the purification to remove so-called metal using the strong acid, etc. On the right-hand side, which is what we want to do to produce the pure hydrogen, is to have a strong phase interaction. First of all, methane, like the left-hand side one, it will diffuse and absorb onto the surface. And the carbon diffuse down, but fail to push the metal particle up, right? And ultimately, only the carbon grow, right? Grow longer and longer. After that, we break down from the catalyst system, and you will achieve a pure carbon filament. So basically, you have these different types of carbon. You have classical carbon filaments. This is a normal carbons. Typically, it's a carbon nanotube. Bamboo shaped kind of a carbon nanotube is like bamboo, right? You have a node in between. The best one is autopus, meaning that on the catalyst particle, you generate many carbon filaments. The more the carbon per gram of the catalyst, meaning that more hydrogen is produced, right? We take the carbon as a guideline to view the skill. The last one is very interesting. Carbon nano onion. We just registered a companies working on this. Carbon nano onion, one of the examples is that you can absorb the electromagnetic wave. We produce the carbon particles like an onion layer by layer. If you focus on the superstructure like an aircraft, it may transparent to the radar. So these are something that opened up a new opportunity. But each onion, the interior part is a metal particle. Right, so this is a lot of application, and the last one, carbon milk, is the benchmark. Octopus will generate 700 grams of the carbon per gram of nickel, right? Whereas the carbon nano onion is worse, 41, as I mentioned, that metal certainly is inside the onion. So in industrial application, we first have to do the desulfurization, because hydrogen sulfide in the natural gas is actually harmful to the catalyst. And then we go to the cracker. After the cracker, we generate the carbon for battery, and then hydrogen and methane can directly burn in the gas turbine. If we filter it to 99.999, we can use in the pan. Yeah, you can see this animation that we are doing the modeling that in rotary reactors, all the particles that rotating in the issue is that because of we are using the catalyst bead instead of catalyst powder. The catalyst bead certainly has less surface area exposed to the reaction. So, but when we rotating it, is that we actually refresh the surface so that the surface can continue to expose the gas for the reaction. So essentially, we are using the methane gas as a source of the turquoise hydrogen, right? And we produce our proprietary catalyst. And then gas coming out, we do not want to do purification, partly because of it add all the costs, and secondly, no point to do so. We wanted to go direct to the combined cycle power plant on Jurong line. And the carbon, we look at construction road kind of application. So this is what we are planning for. Currently, we have this is actually truly a multi-energy system, right? In each country, in each estate, you will have this, or in each city, you have this power, thermal grid, gas grid, and the next one will be hydrogen or ammonia as a new energy vectors. So on the left top corner, we were, as earlier on we mentioned, that we're import LOHC, liquid organics, hydrogen carrier, liquid hydrogen and ammonia, do the so-called dehydrogenation, and we generate either inject it to the natural gas grid or directly to the hydrogen grid. And the methane pyrolysis at the bottom there can also connect to the grid, right? We have done this if Singapore as of now in the 2018 data, we use 50 terawatt hours of electricity, right? Assuming that the hydrogen import price is $5.6 US, and when go to the local distribution, it becomes $6.60. You can see the implication in terms of a price, right? The price, this is the blending volume ratio. If you blend it using 100% of hydrogen, the cost will go down 300%. Whether you wanted to buy the expensive electricity or not, it determines on how much blending, right? Currently, we pitch no more than 20% because when you mix the hydrogen with the methane gas, hydrogen is pretty light, diffuse very fast, right? And then the flame travel very fast. After that, no more flame, methane is here. The flame will travel back, so-called the flashback. This will pose the so-called some danger. So that's why we pitch and suggested by Mitsubishi and Hitachi power system, no more than 20% at the moment, unless we change the new to H-class kind of gas turbine, right? Price, and you will look at the heating values, right? If you use 100% of hydrogen, the heating values is 30% of the natural gas based on the same volume, right? And then the hydrogen import, if you were to use the hydrogen 100% as of 2018, we need every year 3 million tons of hydrogen, right? 3 million tons of hydrogen. And in terms of CO2 reduction. So this is how it works, right? You have on the left-hand side with the catalyst either go to the reactor. The reactor is inclining with a certain angle and it's rotating. It's rotating. So the carbon will drop, right? During the reaction, and then the catalyst will go out and then recirculate again, right? Going this way, and the carbon will collect, and the gas will go for the post-processing. Now I did a summary of a focus on the CDM and rotary reactors will allow a carbon separation from catalyst. Catalyst big concept is proposed, right? We don't use a powder, right? The catalyst bit must survive because the catalyst in the reactors is a reducing environment, but going out is an oxidizing region. So we subject to the high thermal and mechanical stress as well. It must be stable in oxidizing and reducing environment. It must subject to high thermal and mechanical stresses. Iron group catalysts are used and are supported on perovskite material, which is typically soil oxide material. And effect of operating condition, including the temperature, flow rate, gas composition, and the microstructure of the catalyst are critical to determine the lifespan. So this is the laboratories, small reactors. Yeah, now these are more technical. I think I skip it, but here you can see that we dope nickel oxide with cobalt, iron, chromium manganese, as well as aluminum. On the right hand side, we have a dope iron oxide with cobalt, nickel, chromium, etc., coppers, aluminum. So you can see that the yellow one is the best, between that part. Okay, let me summarize the finding that we have. For the dope nickels oxide based catalyst, the maximum carbon yield, because we are not doing it until the deactivation. We fix the time of X hour, we collect this number, meaning that per gram of the catalyst, how much carbon, so that we know that which catalyst is more active, right? So 8.34, if we use the pristine nickel catalyst, which is 5.37, right? Small amount of the dopant can enhance the catalyst. So you can see that we are using only one part of a cobalt, 5 part of nickel, we can enhance it, right? Dopant manganese, as well as aluminum do not enhance catalytic activities. This is what we find. On the dope iron side is very interesting. The higher carbon yield is 7.81. Iron is very cheap, right? But you can see that the catalyst is actually mostly nickel, 5 parts of nickel and 1 part of iron. So against that, it's against the cost kind of a reducing concept, right? The second bullet point is the carbon yield of aluminum doped iron oxide. Aluminum is very cheap. Iron is very cheap. And you will achieve 6.1 times compared to the pristine iron catalyst, which is only 0.87. Hazel Group actually using the iron ore. So you can imagine that the conversion rate is very poor. So with doping with alumina, a little bit of alumina, you can actually enhance 6.1 times. So this is the conclusion that I mentioned. So we really make our graphite. We send a sample to Germany. They make into the bipolar plate. We actually form the flow field by ourselves. They make the graphite plate for us. Right on the left-hand side, you can see different types of carbon nanotubes that we form with different chemicals. Now come to the carbon. This is gold. It's a black gold. You know, many people did not know that carbon is so expensive. If you look at on the red color car, Tesla in one battery, 85 kilowatt hour, they use 96 kilograms of graphite in one battery. 96 kilograms. And you look at the price. Natural kind of graphite powder, SPG is spherical grade kind of carbon for battery, is 8,000 per ton. Synthetic, which we make 20,000 per ton. I'm not sure whether you still remember that for methane pyrolysis, we use 1 ton of hydrogen associated with 3 tons of carbon. If 3 tons of carbon price at 20,000 per ton, 60,000. 60,000, right? But how much for the hydrogen? You hope 1 ton to be able to achieve 1,005. 1,005 versus 60,000, hydrogen has no value. So this is a business, right? You look at this. And in Tesla, they mix in using 40% natural, 60% synthetic in order to reduce the cost. They don't use synthetic at all because it's too expensive. They use 40% natural and 60% synthetic. You will look at the green colors on the top of the box that synthetic graphite have higher cycle life, higher power, less expansion, higher stability. So synthetic carbon is very important. Bottom here is also very encouraging, 500% growth of the graphite in the next few years, since 2016. So these are new opportunities that you are working on hydrogen economy in the energy transition times. Now I have a couple of slides more before I end it. Is hydrogen and fuel cell research activities at NTU. Last year, this year, I think the World Hydrogen Technology Convention was held in Lausanne, right? Not many people know that I was the one who initiated this series on hydrogen in 2005, the first World Hydrogen Technologies Convention in Singapore, right? 2005. First in Singapore, the 9th in Montreal, 10 in the Lausanne, like 2013. So this one I mentioned earlier that we signed an MOU to promote the hydrogen economy with all the hydrogen association. This is a workshop with Australia at the Australia High Court. How to strategize the two countries to become a hydrogen hub. Yeah, over the year we have been working on steam methane reformings and methanol reformings, and we make different types of a fuel cell from a nano fuel cell to 1 megawatts fuel cell with Rolls-Royce, and we built our fuel cell bus during 2010. For the Youth Olympic Game, we use it to ferry the VIP. And then we also have a hydrogen refueling station here, right? And we fly our UAV, we have a combined heat and a power, and we have a regenerative fuel cell system, commercialization in Guangzhou. This is roll-to-roll printing machine, making the CCM. Very big machine, 45 meters, 6 meter high, 45 meter long, right? And demo it with Guangxi, use it as a range extender. This is our deputy prime minister, and this is my partner. Build this, right? Now, they are working in the 6th area. Hydrogen carrier focus on ammonia and metacyclohexane, actually using toluene as a carrier. The second one, I think in the middle, you know that is the turquoise hydrogen that I introduced. Fuel cell in electrolysis cell, we have been working in this for 30 years. The bottom one we are exploring, we have 2 PhD students looking at hydrogen for ship propulsion, right? And then we have a power to X, how to use the renewable power to generate different kind of stuff. The last one is hydrogen test bed from generation, storage to end use. So basically, this is like that, right? We work with Schneider as well as NG. This site is on one island 7 kilometers south of Singapore. We use this to do a major kind of demonstration. We call it REIDS, REIDS, Renewable Energy Integration Demonstrators Model. Right. So on that island, we have a fuel cell vehicle, we have a fuel cell generation, storage, and end use, different types of energy storage, and we also have 10 microgrid, ECAC microgrid, all interconnected. So this is one of the so-called our flagship project. Thank you.
I think myself, I'm not from the whole picture about carbon neutrality in Singapore and the innovation and the country is very intense research in so I think I may start one of the very general questions to start. For instance, in Hong Kong, we have the same habit, carbon neutrality habit as the 2050. And in Hong Kong, I think the government do not have this target is very clear. But actually, the roadmap is not so clear to me. Of course, in Hong Kong, we have a very the power companies rely very much on the nuclear power. But in Singapore, it seems to me there is no such view at all. So how do you think about Singapore? What's the chance to really achieve carbon neutrality by 2050?
Well, very good question. Hong Kong and Singapore are very small, like a state, right? Small region. Hong Kong is a region. We are a country. The size is about the same population, just slightly higher than us. You know, the land that is deployable is very limited in Hong Kong. You know that there are a lot of quite unique mountains. Singapore, we have a lot of space used for reservoir, keep store the water, for military trainings, you know, many other activities. Actually, our land size, our population density as a nation, we rank second after Monaco. So our population density is very high. So when it comes to the renewable energy, that is certainly that we have a very limited, the land cost is far more expensive than the renewable energy that we can harvest. So we have no choice but to go for the import. Import in terms of two, one is hydrogen, the other one is electricity, right? And bilateral kind of relationship is very important. Our relationship with Malaysia, Indonesia, and some of the ASEAN countries is very important. Currently, we are quite good. We continue to strengthen the relationship so that not only the business kind of bilateral kind of business promotion, but also energy kind of trading as well. On the other hand, we have to look at the hydrogen. That is a wider kind of source. As long as you have a substance that containing
hydrogen, virtually you can extract the hydrogen from it. We look at the water, 3/4 of the Earth's surface is in water. No reason why there is no hydrogen, right? You can extract it. The issue is the cost, right? So we will go for this approach. We will continue to explore renewable energy, which is the solar energy, 2 gigawatt peaks, and then even the geothermal. Geothermal, we are also exploring it. Wind, forget about it, because most of the times our average wind speed is less than 2 meters per second. So forget about it. We do not really have many options, right? So we'll go for the energy import. Hong Kong is different. We have Taiwan provide you with the nuclear power. Future, I think that you have to continue to buy more so-called green, electricity from China. Hong Kong is very different. You have big brothers backing you in terms of food, in terms of water, in terms of energy, in terms of everything, right? So, but for us, it's different. We have to fight for the survival. That's it.
Thank you. So, some questions.
Okay. First of all, Professor Chen, thank you very much for this wonderful talk. You really go through from the national level, very big picture, and I think that for researchers and students that in energy related field will learn a lot. Okay, so one question that we have questions from the online, and let me read the first one. It's from our guest named Albert. So for Professor Chen, in your view, more and more nations now have announced the hydrogen strategy, and LCOH will continue dropping with time. Why isn't there more commercial projects as compared to the demonstration projects using hydrogen? Is it the problem of transporting liquid pressurized hydrogen through important infrastructures?
Okay. First of all, to address the liquid organics hydrogen carrier. This is not really, although we are doing it, Japan is doing it, Wuhan is doing it, but I personally believe that this is not something that we should focus more than that. If you look at the hydrogenation, you take out about 40% of the energy. When you do the dehydrogenation, another 40%, right? 80% gone. And then including the transportation of the liquid, although transportation is very easy, but ultimately the energy left is very minimum. So I have to correct a little bit between 60 to 80%, right? The energy will be lost in this. Yeah, for the liquid hydrogen, you know that currently the largest vessel that can carry the liquid hydrogen is built by Kawasaki Heavy Industry, only 75 tons. 75 tons. And the joke is that when liquid hydrogen is delivered from Australia to sent to Japan, using the marine fuel oil, for the vessel to carry the liquid hydrogen. Along the way, you already pollute, right? If you were to use the hydrogen to power the vessel when you reach Australia, not much left, or maybe not enough either. So this exposed the so-called the issue of the volumetric energy density of the liquid hydrogen. And there's a reason why that all people move to ammonia. Ammonia has a 1.5 times volumetric energy density than the liquid hydrogen. So that's why that people now are crazy in ammonia. Ammonia is very easily prepared. You can have a two mode of a liquid hydrogen. One is to refrigerate it, the other one is apply the pressure more at 10 bar, become a liquid, so you can transport it. After that, what you need is not to take the hydrogen out from the ammonia, because again, you need the energy to extract it. Ideally, is to burn it directly into the gas turbine, which is the just now I showed you to use that. We are working with Mitsubishi heavy industry to use the ammonia as the feedstock, for the power plant to generate the electricity. Yeah, please. Please.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting and comprehensive, in particular for the cost for the hydrogen breakdown. I have a question regarding the hydrogen. Hydrogen is open, but in Singapore, you already have the natural gas. Basically, is a major electricity supply. Why you don't use the natural gas with the CCS rather than go for the hydrogen as another more expensive and increase? I believe you will have more complicated infrastructure and supply chain and similar like this in Australia in transport hydrogen. Why not electricity? And which is much easier. So that's just I'm curious about how you.
I think that question has been raised many times. So you are able to extract the hydrogen by steam methane reformings from the natural gas, and you continue to have a natural gas. And this is the cheapest way, right? And then you apply the CCUS. Unfortunately, the application of a CO2 is very limited, right? Although all the oil majors in Singapore is looking into making the kerosene or the jet fuel, right? Capture the CO2 and then with hydrogen generated, and then you make it into a sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. Right. So this is one way, but how much you can produce? And just now mentioned that when you produce 1 kilograms of hydrogen, it is associated with 9 to 10 kilograms of CO2. You have a huge amount of CO2. Ultimately, you have to store it somewhere. Store it somewhere is that for the very optimistic estimation is the one time is $80. Small part go to bury. The capture will contribute to most of the cost. So that is a problem. And in the power plant currently, the hard CO2 concentration is only 5%. Of course, in the atmosphere it's worse, 400 ppm. Right. So from here you can see that either you capture from the power plant only 5% of the CO2. The capture part will be very expensive, right? And then you have a lot of CO2. Who do you sell to, or maybe you buy the land from Indonesia or Philippines and bury it there? That is not doable. So from the long-term perspective that, we could have some part during the transition period, capture the CO2 because we have an oil refinery. You look at our carbon tax increase by 2030 as of now, 10 times. So all the company will think that how to do the trade-off in terms of the cost. Right? Either you pay the tax or you absorb some of the CO2 and make it into the products. I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, I follow your question regarding the utilization of CO2. And it's very controversial because the CO2 utilization somehow helps the climate change, but doesn't contribute to mitigation because we need to reduce 4 gigaton by 2035. 6 gigaton by 2050, and the currently CO2 utilization only 200 megaton in totally globally, and this is totally different attitudes. It's similar for you're talking about the graphene utilization. There you show the 5 to 6,000 tons, and we're not talking about the gigatons of CO2. So this is really not in the same magnitude. And I have been working for this for more than 30 years regarding climate change. And similar for the hydrogen. Hydrogen has been very popular. I'm still very full for hydrogen, but is this a little bit over estimated for the rule of the hydrogen? And in terms of the global system, of course, Singapore is very special. Hong Kong is very special too. But still, we need to think about the utilization of hydrogen as a net will not contribute significantly to the climate change. for the mitigation CO2. And then in the magnitude, it doesn't contribute at all, even we say, oh, 100 of thousand, 100 gigaton of CO2 have been utilized, but that doesn't contribute significantly to the gigaton of CO2. So this is totally different side magnitude.
Let me pick up this point. There are two issues here. One is CO2. I personally do not really buy in significantly on carbon capture and utilization. You can only contribute a small part of the reduction during the energy transition period. Look at hydrogen on the other hand. I'm pushing for hydrogen economy for many years. I'm an advocate of hydrogen economy. I'm a fan, of so-called it. Many people has this question mark on the safety and all of the issue, either leaking of the hydrogen into the atmosphere, it is a greenhouse gas, right? But not as potent as natural gas. But these are all the issues, but we ask ourselves, if not hydrogen, what else? Very simple question. If not hydrogen, what else we have to address the climate change, right? Nuclear, another option. But for Singapore, do you think that we can use nuclear for such a small country? You know, Singapore is small, but you may not know how small it is. Let me put it into the perspective that if you land at Changi Airport, which is in the east, and go to NTU, which is in the west, 42 kilometers, that's define the whole country. From the north to the south, 26 kilometers. The economy is vibrant. You know that we have a shipbuilding, we have oil refinery, petrochemical, aerospace industry, semiconductors, many others. So what is our energy model? We have to think about it. What can we do? Nuclear. Now after the Fukushima incident, I think that we have to relook into it. Although the governments also explore SMR, small modular reactors, which may be typically 300 megawatt, right, in terms of heat generation. And geothermal, solar energy, we have to rely on energy, especially for the grid application and the power generation. So what else? You know, if you import natural gas, we burn the CO2, you cannot reach our next zero. We have no choice, right? So if you look at this, you know that for certain countries, that's why the topic is very specific to renewable energy scarce country in the energy transition period.
But basically imports, renewable energy. That's the only solution. Is not hydrogen is just one option.
Yeah, one option. That's why we have a three scenario, including the electricity. Yeah, but ultimately, electricity as well as hydrogen will play a major part. As my report just now that we currently, on an average basis, we only use 6.5 gigawatt, but we will purchase 4 gigawatt of power from ASEAN countries. So this is hydrogen
Without green hydrogen, basically it's doesn't solve the CO2 issues, right? That's
no, it will.
how. Where you are still looking at.
Water electrolysis. You have to buy the so-called the green molecules. It's a very important that you don't buy the so-called the browns or or blue kind of molecules. You are not going for the steam methane reforming. Like our contract with our neighbor is to buy the green molecules and generate the
Where green molecules come from? That's renewable energy. Without renewable energy, just have the green molecules.
I think it's a very technical issues, and we can continue after the seminar. So, due to the time, we will have pick up one short questions from online and one short questions on site.
Do we have first questions from the audience here?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really enjoy very much the change. Yeah, this is a way which we can do a lot of things there. I got a couple of you share with us talking about this, now say economy, right? The hydrogen economy and everything. But here we go to this working group, this wonderful concept, yeah, from Rotterdam. And another point I'd like to see, I see you share, but the CCU concept is excellent concept. So I'd like to
see whether we can go deeper into this CCU. Reason why? A couple of months ago, I visited one power plant in Sanchao. In fact, it's in Shanghai. Yeah, the higher. I saw that they use up the CO2 over 99%. It already delivered in other industry making use of this CO2 to grow the plant, micro plant. And they're very successful. They are going to expand. So that's wow, it's a good thing. Yeah, make use of this concept since you concept is an excellent thing. Because if you don't do that, just like in Hong Kong, right? We pay a lot expensive in Kowloon side, we pay less Hong Kong side. Just let's for place like this, right? So it's always a good reason that we move into this direction. And so I want to see more view on this CCU concept. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, these are all driven by mostly the oil company. Behind is economics, right? If you look at from now to 2050, the most challenging energy problem associated with problems of the grid application. Renewable energy can directly connect to the grid. Off the grid, as more as a vehicle, we already stressed using battery or using a hydrogen fuel cell, right? The next one will be the aircraft propulsion. The third one will be the marine propulsion. How big is the car? 2 gigajoules. How big is the bus? 20 gigajoules. You can work out the energy storage and whether what kind of energy storage is needed, right? And look at the A380s. That is when you takers ship propulsion. Wow, crazy! No way you can use the battery. No other solution unless you put a nuclear on board of the ship. So you will look at this. You have to develop a solution for the so-called marine propulsion. For marine propulsion, just now I already ruled out the hydrogen because hydrogen has a very low volumetric. The next one will be the ammonia. Ammonia is still no good because it's only 1.5 times of the liquid hydrogen. If you look at the ocean going vessel from Singapore to Europe, 55 megawatt kind of power, right, to 60 megawatts. So big, you can work out the voyage, how much fuel you need, how much energy in terms of heating values by applying a certain efficiency. You roughly know that how big the tank, maybe the whole ship is carry the tank, but nothing. No goods anymore. It's only the hydrogen, the so-called ammonia. So this comes to the so-called something that many people are missing is the so-called e-fuel. But this e-fuel, it will be the so-called methane. Many people stop at Slovakia process using CO2, capture CO2 together with the hydrogen, and then you have a methane. They stop here. You should consider liquefying it to become like LNG. The infrastructure is already there. You don't have to invest any infrastructure. Like Singapore, we are already a hub in LNG. You don't have to invest more. And the good thing is that energy that will liquefy the methane gas is only 8% compared to hydrogen. Hydrogen is 40% of hydrogen, but this is 8% of the methane. Different, the base is different. 40% of hydrogen, very huge. This is 8% of methane, very small. Slovakia process is a mature technology. Cooling is a mature technology. So going in this route, the energy density will be much higher than the liquid. Maybe if I'm not mistaken, it's about another 1.6 times of the ammonia. So from here, you can see this will address the ship propulsion also. You can argue on all this, but ultimately, how do you solve the problem? We are shifting from the efficiency to rational energy. In the past, we keep on comparing that efficiency, but now the more issue is on the rational energy. It's a very important that if you talk about energy, to be sure energy should not be every day. 15 minutes of the sunlight is enough to power the earth for 1 whole year. We shouldn't have all these problems, but it's the cost, it's the rational end use, right? If you address a lot of issue on the efficiency, but the cost is very high, you can't do the job. So ultimately, it's the rational end use. It's more addressing. I hope I answered your question.
think due to time limits, we pick up the last question from the online.
Okay, so I'll read the question that from the guest online that is related to the situation of Hong Kong's case and ask for your answers for that one. The question is in June 2022, which is last year, Hong Kong's second largest franchise bus operator, which is the City Bus, has presented its first hydrogen-powered bus. But the bus is not yet legally allowed to operate in the territory. Frankly speaking, I actually do not know this. It's interesting. So the question to Professor Chen is, to what extent do you think Hong Kong is hydrogen ready? In addition to cars, what other applications should the government consider?
Well, don't speak on behalf of the Hong Kong government. Well, my personal view that think of a taxi, think of bus is doable in either Singapore or Hong Kong. Yeah, partly because of you don't have to invest a lot of infrastructure, right? Point to point, you don't have to. If you are targeted for your vehicle, the safety distance, the diameter is very big. You know that Hong Kong is already as crowded as Singapore. It's not so practical. You install a so-called refilling station and take up a lot of space, right? So buses is different, right? You have a point to point, and that you would allow you to travel a few hundred kilometers in the day, depends on the fuel tank that you have. So this is doable from the economic perspective. But of course, a lot of things is just like in China, they have a 16 hydrogen valley in China. I don't know, maybe now even more. But many places do not have a policy in place. It's just like my friend in the Wuhan that wanted to build a hydrogen refilling station, but no license given, right? So this will, hinder the so-called progress of pushing for the hydrogen. And most of the time that these two are not intended to develop. Technology always develops very fast, but the policy, is very slow. It's just like an autonomous vehicle, right? You think that technology is very mature technology. NTU, if you visit NTU, we even have a test circuit for autonomous vehicle. Any car that you wanted to put on the road, you must test it on our circuit, pass, and then you can go to the road. We even own the test circuit. But the problem is not on the technology side. It's on many other issues. Right? For example, insurance. Which insurance that you are to secure the so-called business? When accident happen, when sometimes people on purpose go and hit by the car and claim the insurance, these are all the problems. The same thing is that hydrogen is that the policy is always very slow. Right, very, very slow. So that is answer to the question that in Singapore we have a major hazard department comprising of SCDF, the Civil Defense, Ministry of Environment, as well as Ministry of Manpower. They form a major hazard department to look into it, to drive it. I don't know whether you have a equivalent in Hong Kong that put a few agencies together to address this, to come up with a policy paper so that it can roll out. If not, is that there's no point to talk about hydrogen, talk about implementation. You will never happen. Someone had to take the lead. Like currently, ammonia, I'm chairing ammonia handling technical advisory group as a chairman. So it's a very important way to look at a different scenario, including terrorist attack. How to have a double protection in case there's a leak. Right. So we are also target subject to attack by terrorism. So these are the things that very, very complex kind of issue, but someone had to take the lead to look into all the problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Due to time, we're going to stop the discussion. And thank you again for excellent and informative presentation. A very exciting discussion. And thank you all for attending this. Thank you.